Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
Back again.
I feel like these are people like clapping for you on the way back from New York City.
Well, you know, I've been flying all day and my arms sure are tired.
I like that. Well played, sir.
Yeah, no, it's been an interesting week. It's Apple Cup week. There is news out of the NBA that has made some national news as it relates to Seattle. As you just alluded to, I was in New York for that. Had a chance to ask a few questions of Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner. That's coming up in this show. You're going to hear it in full. And also because it is Apple Cup week, the weirdest of Apple Cup weeks, the third week of the college football season. Damon Huard, the UW grad who now works for the University of Washington, he's on the show as well, talking about the business side, about going forward in the Big Ten. At a certain point when we were talking, I said the Big 12. I've messed that up even on this show. The Big 12 versus the Big 10. The Huskies, of course, now part of that conference. We talk about all of that as we head into this weirdest of Apple Cup weeks. It doesn't really seem like Apple Cup.
Well, the apples are still on the trees, Chris.
Yes, they are.
It's about 60, 70 degrees this week, and it doesn't feel like that 40s in November Apple Cup chill. And you know, I will say this, at least it's still going on, and I know that this game is happening at a neutral site in Lumen Field because the Huskies couldn't do another road game with their move to the Big Ten, kind of changing the schedule, and I think that ultimately, you know, we just have to be glad it's happening, but at the same time, we can be kind of weirded out by it, and I'm going to tell you this right now. You know, I know we focus on this sort of thing, but X's and O's, man, like this is going to be a really close game. Like I genuinely don't know who's going to win this game, and I think that's a testament to the way both teams, quite frankly, reloaded this offseason.
Well, that's going to set us up nicely for Four Corners. Again, later in the show, we're going to talk about what happened back in New York with the NBA owners who met and how it relates to expansion. But first, what's good and bad in the world of sports? We call this Four Corners, and the crowd always is buzzing when we do this Four Corners. First of all, what's good this week, Niko?
Well, you know, and I understand some people may hear this and might be like, what the heck are you talking about, Niko? I want to talk about the Mariners for a second because as a positive, because listen, we're talking about a summer where they lost the 10-game lead on the American League West. We're talking about a summer where they had to fire their manager, and these are not good things. But the way that, and even, you know, listen, Dan Wilson's era, so to speak, started out pretty warm, and then they hit a bit of a rough patch. But what I'm saying is about these players, the way they've been able to fight back, and the Mariners, from a front office perspective, despite all this stuff that could be really perceived as negative, the crowd's still packing that place every night. And this team is still within shouting distance. Now, they may not be by the time we do our next episode, but they're still within shouting distance of a playoff spot. They're keeping it interesting. They're giving away Luis Castillo Funkos.
They always do a great job with that stuff.
Right, yeah, promotion. We talked about hot dogs from Heavens on this show. I think one Heaven. I said Heavens plural there. But, you know, I think they're... Oh, there we go. Close up. Luis Castillo Funko Pop. Pretty cool. Yeah, so fans will get this, I think, Saturday. What I guess I'm trying to say is, though, despite all these things that could, in a lot of cases, derail a franchise, they've stayed the course. They're still doing a respectable job on the field, and the front office is doing an amazing job. If you're an average fan that's going to the ballpark on any given night, you wouldn't know all this stuff that's happening. Like you're a casual fan. You're not the most diehard of M's fan. Yeah.
I just worry that they're going to finish like one game short again this year, or under that key 54%.
Oh no!
And we're going to be talking about that number again if they don't make the playoffs. I'll tell you what else is good: the Huskies and the Cougs.
Yeah,
both off to 2-0 starts in this brave new college football world. You and I on this show talk about things like TV ratings, NIL. I like to follow the WSU ratings because they are important for the future of that university and their future conference location, whether that is the Pac-12 or somewhere else. Great game for the Cougs versus Texas Tech. They were on Fox nationally, had over 1 million viewers, which is a great number for college football. It's also great for the branding of Washington State University. That's something they take into a boardroom to sell along with Oregon State. They peaked at one point at a 20 share here locally, meaning one of 5 TVs on here watching that game. So again, that's a great metric for Washington State University as they try to figure out, as we discussed last week, what they're going to do with who they play next year in college football.
Yeah, and to that point, when Pat Chun was the athletic director of the Cougs, he would always tell me, we're in the Seattle market, and you see how much they're covered here. You see, and the numbers you just mentioned certainly speak to that. And it's interesting now he's with the Huskies, switching allegiances with this Apple Cup. My only, here's what I want to say about from a negative Seattle sports perspective, and it has to do with the same thing we're just talking about here. It's not the Apple Cup per se. But it's this notion, so what we talked about last week is picking up steam, this idea that perhaps Oregon State and Washington State will come into some kind of scheduling agreement with the ACC. I'm even seeing, I'm going to be honest with you, we talked about what one of my sources was telling me last week.
Yeah.
Those folks are still saying, okay, yeah, that's on the table, but don't be surprised if both schools aren't in the Big 12 or the ACC within 2 to 3 years. So how is that negative, right?
Right.
The negative part here is the note. First of all, they should have been there the whole time. The negative is the perception that these schools, just because of where they are located in a certain state, are less than, whether it's their in-state brethren or whether it's some of these other programs, that they're instantly worse than some school in Ames, Iowa, right? And that's not a knock on Iowa State, but it's like, that's just not what it is. The perception of college football, especially when you're talking about a lot of it on social media, we talked about it in this show, a lot of the conference stories are things that are fed to certain journalists. There's great journalists out there that know better than that, and you know a lot of them. But there's a certain perception that it's fed to these people, and that becomes perception, almost becomes reality.
Right.
The Cougs, Oregon State, history, tradition, and I've maintained since all the chaos of last year they would land in one of those conferences. I think it'll happen. But my negative about it is one of the things probably slowing it down is the perception that has inevitably leaked its way up to certain college presidents.
So you didn't want to take a shot at Iowa. I'll take a shot at Iowa. Iowa is discussed in both a political and sports perspective. There's always this discussion every 4 years about whether the Iowa caucuses should be deciding presidential candidates for the rest of the country. In college football, the state of Washington has twice as many people as Iowa, yet right now it only has one so-called Power Four team or university in the University of Washington, both Iowa State and Iowa in a state with less than 4 million people. They're both in major conferences right now with major TV distribution deals and a lot of money coming into the state of Iowa. Great for Iowa, but some of this doesn't make sense. Okay, let's end on this with Four Corners. On the negative side, it's the Sonic story.
Oh yeah,
it's the hoop is kind of moving ever so slightly on expansion, and that's what I like to call in our business a transition. Because one of the other things that we do on this show every week is the Supersonic Minute, right? We like to do that as well when we talk about this. And yes, I was in New York this week at the NBA Board of Governors. For the uneducated, the NBA Board of Governors are the owners, the NBA owners, or top executives that have been designated as a governor. So, for instance, the Toronto Raptors chairman, Larry Tannenbaum, he's not technically an owner. He's the executive who goes and represents Toronto. I did speak with him outside. I've reported on this. He's a big fan of Seattle. He's a big fan of Climate Pledge Arena. He's a big fan of the idea of the NBA coming back to Seattle. But it sounds like, as we talk about this expansion process, and this is something that we've talked about for several weeks on this show, the goalposts, to mix metaphors, are kind of moving. Adam Silver has talked about beginning the process of expansion in earnest, his words, in the fall, and you'll hear that in a second. And now he's saying this season. And it was a story in the question and answer session that I had with Adam Silver in New York that it was one of ESPN's top stories. It was his line was repeated in multiple stories across the country. Before we dive into it, this is what Adam Silver had to say in New York this week about Seattle and expansion process. Commissioner, it's Chris Daniels from KOMO TV in Seattle. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
You too. It's been a while.
I know you said previously that you believe the expansion process would begin in earnest in the fall. It's not quite fall, but was there further discussion during this meeting about an expansion committee that you alluded to, who may serve on that, how that may work going forward?
Chris, there was not a lot of discussion in this meeting about expansion, but only largely because, not for lack of interest, It was that we had said to them that we're not quite ready. And I appreciate your pointing out that it's kind of not quite, it might technically, is it fall yet? I don't know, maybe not yet, but it's feeling a little bit chillier in New York, so we're getting close to fall. But that it was something that we told our board, we plan to address this season. We're not quite ready yet, but I think that there's certainly interest in the process, and I think that we're not there yet in terms of having made any specific decisions about markets, or even frankly, to expand. I mean, I know I've said this before. I think over time organizations should grow. It is appropriate, but it gets a bit complicated in terms of selling equity in the league, what that means for the existing television relationships, et cetera. And what we've told interested parties is, thank you for your interest. We'll be back to you, and that's certainly the case in Seattle as well.
And just one quick follow-up on that. Steve Ballmer, as you mentioned, opening his new building in Los Angeles. He's doing another preseason game in Seattle at Climate Pledge Arena. Is there anybody from the NBA doing an assessment of that building and how that works with those exhibition games, now the third in Seattle?
Yeah, the answer is yes. I mean, we're always paying attention to what's happening in other arenas throughout the United States. When we do play games there, we look very closely at the support we get in those markets. I know we're going to get a tremendous support around that preseason game again. But incidentally, we look everywhere. I mean, I think we have a pretty good library now of arenas everywhere in the world, and in part because even if we're not playing there on a regular basis, there's things we can learn. And incidentally, I think that's the same case with Intuit Dome. I mean, he's putting aside the infrastructure itself, he's got a lot of new technology we were talking about today that's really exciting and potentially to be implemented around the league.
So that's what Adam Silver had to say.
Good to see you again.
Good to see him again, and I had a chance to talk with him a little bit afterwards as well. I know that some of the reaction on social media was like, Chris, hey, this is more of the same, but what he said there was saying they are going to address it this season. They aren't, that there is interest at the NBA in expanding, and that they're just not there quite yet. That's the same thing I heard in the room before and after. I would tell people that in this winding path, and you can read more about it at KOMOnews.com, dating back to really 2006 and before 1995, there's been a definite sense in the tone from the NBA. We saw it with David Stern over the years. I think anybody who's followed this story has seen me in a similar situation with David Stern. The tone then was different. The tone here is definitely more positive. They're just not there yet, and I think reading between the lines from what I have gathered, there may not be enough owners who are ready to commit to expansion right now. One of the other things that came up in that press conference was James Dolan, who is the owner of the Knicks and the Rangers, Madison Square Garden, that he has some concerns with the TV digital rights deal, how that relates to regional sports networks, which have been a cash cow for these teams over the years. We've talked about that on this show as well, how it relates to the Mariners, that he's concerned with the amount of money that he may lose on the TV digital rights deal and regional sports networks and an expansion process, because you heard a little bit there from Silver that you're talking about an equity stake in the league and how many times that money gets shared. Just reading between the lines, it seems like perhaps there's not enough owners that yet want to commit fully to this. There was some belief that this was going to be a meeting where we would hear about an expansion committee. That obviously was not announced. That was the question I posed there to Silver. But I still get the sense from being in the room, being in New York, hearing what the feedback that people are getting in Seattle, that this is going to be something addressed this season, which is similar to what he said about a process beginning in earnest in the fall.
Well, and it goes along with the reason he has said for the last 2 years, you have to figure out your TV digital rights deal first, which is essentially done other than that pending litigation. I don't want to mitigate that, but so a guy like James Dolan needs to see what that exact money is, what that means, and how much he's going to win or lose if you split that with Seattle and supposed Vegas too, right?
Right.
That's what we've been hearing the whole time, and the fact that he gave a finite thing, did Silver, this season. So, yes, a little bit of moving the hoop or the goalpost, but also he's still addressing it this season. Okay, I got to ask you, without saying anything that you can't say, Just how many conversations are you having there with whether it's owners or folks and kind of setting the stage for what we hope is going to be an exciting few months ahead? How many of those people, because they know you from 2008
Yes.
and the years prior, obviously we heard Silver say it. So how many of those conversations do you have and how many do they kind of point to you like, hey, hopefully soon kind of thing?
Well, I had a few people come up and say hi. Again, the tone is dramatically different than even it was 10 years ago with the Kings story and Sacramento. They're happy to see me in a situation like that because in a certain way, showing that Seattle is interested in following this story, you do get the sense that there's just a certain amount of owners right now who are hesitant to commit. When Silver says it wasn't discussed, I have a feeling it was discussed.
Yeah, sure.
And we heard not too long ago from Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell. He expected this to be on the September Board of Governors agenda as well. We know that Steve Ballmer is a huge supporter of bringing the NBA back to Seattle, even though he owns the Clippers and he's opening up his own arena, which, oh, by the way, is going to host games in the next Olympics down in Los Angeles. He's fully committed to the Clippers there, but he's been a massive supporter of Seattle. He's in that boardroom. He's in the room where it happens, and he's having a third exhibition game at Climate Pledge Arena to show off the arena with the Portland Trail Blazers, which are also owned by Jody Allen and a Seattle family. And we saw the Utah Jazz last year come to town with a owner, Ryan Smith, that has a company that has Seattle roots as well. So there are owners that know this market, that are fans of this market. Again, Larry Tannenbaum from Toronto said he's a fan of the market because he loves what the Kraken have done with Climate Pledge Arena. And I reported that. So there are owners who support this. You saw Silver's demeanor change a little bit when Dolan's name came up in regards to the regional sports networks and that money. And you do get the sense that perhaps the NBA was trying to get this done to announce something at this Board of Governors meeting, but it's going to take a little bit more time, which is why instead of saying the fall, Silver is now saying this season.
What's a few months when you've been waiting 16 years?
Well, and I would tell you that it's a story that goes all the way back to 1995 in Key Arena, and you could even go further than that. A story that goes back even longer than 30 years.
Go ahead.
The Apple Cup.
Yeah. This is going to be a great one, as I said a minute ago. I can't wait.
It's weird, though.
It's weird. The game is going to be fantastic, but it's going to be different, not on either campus. Lumen's a beautiful and amazing facility. It's just going to be different to have it there.
I hope Lumen doesn't sound like this.
Tickets available on StubHub and all those
Lots
places.
of great seats still available. I know there's talk about Cougar fans saying we need to, show some sort of support and not show up to this game. That I've seen that whole idea that we're gonna have a ban of ticket sales or showing up to this game, and so there's some concern about filling up Lumen Field, which I think would look bad for everybody involved. It's just the idea that you're doing this in the third game of the season instead of the end of the season on a cold day at either Husky Stadium or Martin Stadium seems weird. Even for somebody like Damon Huard, who played for the Huskies, he works for the University of Washington, he played in the NFL. I had a chance to talk with him about all of this as we gear up for a summer. It's still summer.
Technically.
Apple Cup. Here's what he had to say. Damon Huard, thank you for doing this. It is Apple Cup week. There's nothing to talk about, right, with Apple Cup week?
Nothing. I mean, it's freezing cold here in November. It's crazy, right? I mean, second week of September, and we're talking Apple Cup.
Yeah, isn't it weird? Isn't it weird to be talking
weird.
about the Apple Cup in September?
It is really weird. It really kind of hit me today. Like I haven't felt the normal buzz just yet. I think it's going to pick up some steam down the stretch here for sure this week. But these are two good football teams, both 2-0, have done the job the first couple of weeks of the season, and it's just on, right? We're playing at Lumen Field. So much has gone on in this past year. We're obviously not in the same league anymore, the same conference. So yeah, a lot going on. But it's going to be fascinating, I think, Saturday, when you get in that arena and, you see that other helmet, I know, for the Huskies and Husky fans, and it's the Apple Cup, and you cross the white lines, and all the other distractions and everything else going on around the game goes away for 60 minutes as the two, rivals will get to go at it again here for what? You probably know. I don't. I should know. If I was calling the game, I would know. But what is it, the 120th time?
It's been a long time. You've had this great career locally, Puyallup High School, UW Husky quarterback, NFL quarterback. For how many years was it? Was it a full 10?
Well, 12 years, 14
12,
training
yeah.
camps. I fooled them for 12 of the 14 camps. So.
And now you're at UW as director of, help me with the title, communication, external engagement.
Well, Chris, it's a great question, because actually I think it's changed since it was on the website. It's even more fancier now. I'm the assistant athletic director of special initiatives. So big title, fancy words, all these things. But the reality is I'm an ambassador to the program, to this place I love. It's been so good to me. And, first off as a student athlete all those years ago, and now to come back full circle, this is already my 15th year here. I've worn a bunch of different hats. I've been a fundraiser when it was, building the Husky Stadium, a decade ago, and then moved over to the football side of things with Sarks last year, and Coach Pete era. I worked with the staff there in a bunch of different roles. And then right before COVID, and really when my son was coming to school here, I kind of stepped away from the football side of things and came back over to the administrative side of things, and really just like to think of myself as an ambassador. Like I said, do a lot of public speaking, a lot of donor relations, anything I can do to help this great school out, and university and football program. So it's been a fun ride. I get my football fix, be around college campus every day. It's a special, special place.
So as an ambassador, what do you think of this big change this year? Not only playing the Apple Cup in the third week of the season, but everything that has happened with the Pac-12 falling apart, and now the Huskies in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, obviously lots of change, right? They say the only constant in life, and I suppose the only constant in collegiate athletics, is change, and change fast. And we're very fortunate, because I think we have a seat at the table, and we should. And to be a part of the Big Ten now, one of the best conferences in all of the land, might make the argument it is the best. Sure, the SEC is right there as well, but from an academic standpoint, I think the Big Ten, it matches well with the University of Washington and everything that we believe in as an institution. So it's the right fit, it's the right time. And certainly excited to be a part of this thing going forward. It's lots of challenges for sure. When you look at our schedule, you look at the travel, and just the overall change. But as a player, you love playing in these big games, and the opportunities these kids have this year to go play in a whiteout at Penn State, to go play at Iowa. You got Michigan coming here to Montlake in about a month. I mean, these are the moments and the games that you want to play in. Obviously, TV wanted them as well, but the kids want to play in these games. They're legacy opportunities for them should they go win that game they're not supposed to. And the fans will love it too. But maybe the coaches are a little, I don't know about this one. But for the players, they want to be a part of it. And I think it'll be really cool going forward for them and our fans.
Yeah, you mentioned the travel from where you sit. I mean, a lot of this was done on the fly. It was first about getting the football schedule done for a lot of the schools that are going into new conferences, figuring that all out. Then it was, okay, now we need to get the fall sports figured out. As the university and the athletic department has kind of sorted through all this, where do things stand maybe in the back half of the calendar, the sports calendar year, in terms of figuring this stuff out?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we go, we're going to learn a lot, especially this first year. And there's no doubt there's some challenges, and obviously the Olympic sports, but I think you can get pretty creative with travel. And certainly, our teams are not going to go back east and just play one game, much like traveling to Arizona when they play the Wildcats on a Thursday and the Sun Devils on a Saturday or Sunday. So, Sure, the time zones will make it tough, and especially the academics and some of those things, and maybe some bad weather. But again, I think even those Olympic sport teams, I know you look at volleyball. My daughter plays volleyball. She's here at UW, so excited to go play in some of these arenas, and the Nebraskas of the volleyball world. And, those are just going to be opportunities of a lifetime, and so much fun for those kids. No doubt the travel is going to be a little tough, but great opportunities to go play some killer games and some new places.
Yeah, Nebraska volleyball is a great program. That will be, I think, fun for a lot of people to see UW versus Nebraska in volleyball in particular. As far as this Apple Cup, it is weird. It's weird that it's going to be at Lumen Field. It's weird it's going to be in the third week. I mean, is there a part of you, having competed in so many over time, that you're going to be sad to see how this is all playing out? Or are you excited to see the differences, the changes?
Look, we played the Apple Cup at Lumen before. Well, I think it was called CenturyLink or something else a few years ago. We were remodeling Husky Stadium. So, I mean, the game's been played elsewhere. I think there's no doubt there's a little more emotion, and I get it. If you're a Coug out there, I feel for you for sure. There's no doubt that the rivalry as conference foes forever has been very special. We got a 5-year contract to keep this thing going, which I think is great. Hopefully it's in perpetuity that they play this game, because I think it means a lot to a lot of Washingtonians. And who knows, where things play out 5-10 years from now as far as conferences and everything and realignment. This thing is not done. But no doubt where the Cougs and the Beavers sit right now is a 2-team league, and fighting to schedule games next season and all these things. I feel for these guys, but it's where we're at. It's college football 2024. I would just tell the Cougs, do your thing every week this year except this Saturday, and make a statement for yourself, much like you did last week beating Texas Tech. Stay relevant. And I think Coach Diekert does a great job over there. Their schedule is definitely lighter than it would have been had they played in the Big 12 this year, or was still the Pac-12 for that matter. So go take care of business, and I think leagues will pay attention, and who knows where you land.
So where do you watch this game on Saturday? And do you watch the game with a particular glass of wine in your hand?
Well, it sure as hell ain't double back. I'm not drinking any of that stuff on Saturday. We'll be at the game. We're fortunate enough that we have a suite for the staff here. We'll be working, and I'm not sure any passing time is going to make its way into Lumen Field. They got their folks that they deal with there. But if we were at Husky Stadium, for sure, it'd be a nice glass of that passing time Horse Heaven Hills cab.
Yeah, what got you into wine and wanting to do that? Because there are a certain amount of people who they've heard of Bledsoe's thing. They maybe not have heard of your thing.
Well, gosh, it's hard to believe, Chris. We've been at this for over a decade already. 2012 was our first vintage. So, Drew makes some good wine, but wine is purple, not crimson. We can remember that. and also, as I remind Drew all the time, there is some Cougs who make some very, very fine wines out there. But let's be real, it's only the Huskies that can afford your wines, Drew. So can you tell it's Apple Cup week? I mean, come on, Chris, that was a softball. I had to do that. Yeah. But Dan got me involved, Marino, my partner in this, drinking wine as a young rookie, 25 years ago in the late 90s. And the bug just kind of bit, and we always talked about one day when I was done and retired and back home that we would start this project, and kind of started out as, just making, let's make little 400 cases, Horse Heaven Hills, where my dad grew up over in Eastern Washington by Prosser. And then, this is good. This is fun. People like this. Let's grow this thing a little bit more. And so we've grown about 2,500 cases. We got an awesome wine club, but we stayed very small. And because we stayed small, we're able to kind of have that attention to detail in the cellar. And we've stayed focused, and I think that's really separated us from a lot of Washington wineries. There's over 1,000 of them. We just make 2,500 cases a year, and we're right there, making some of the best Cabernet in the state, price to score ratio. So I guess if I don't toot my own horn, nobody will. But having a bunch of fun with this, and it's been a great little business for me the last decade.
And I'm sure it goes without saying, if the Huskies win on Saturday, you'll be raising a glass of your wine after the game outside Lumen Field.
Oh, for sure. And it'll be a nice picture sent to Bledsoe and some of my other Cougar friends.
Damon, thanks for doing this.
You got it, Chris. Have a good night. Go Dogs.
See, I almost cut him off there before he could say.
How do you not love Damon Huard? Oh. Even if you're a Coug, you gotta respect. He's a good dude.
That was funny and interesting to get his perspective as well on the Pac-12 and saying, "Hey, Cougs, stay relevant, and good things will come your way." Yeah,
and viewers and listeners can't see us nodding our heads as that's playing, but yes, when he said that, I'm like, yeah, it's exactly what we're hearing. That this thing is far from over. Troy Dannon told me last year, as I've said about 1,000 times in this podcast, if you thought the last couple of years were chaotic, the next 3 to 5 are going to put it to shame. And I genuinely believe that. So, yeah, stay tuned, Cougs and Beavers fans. And my goodness, let's enjoy this Apple Cup. Well, and to his point, it would be a different schedule this year for the Cougs. I mean, you look at the Huskies' schedule. It is difficult in the Big Ten Conference now. The Cougs, if they can get by the Huskies, if they can get by Boise State, you look at the rest of that schedule for the Cougars, and it seems to get a little bit easier. And when we talk about access to the college football playoff and all that kind of stuff, they are set up after these next couple of weeks if they perform well. Yeah, Wyoming and Hawaii, respect to those institutions, are not like playing Utah and USC. And Oregon and Washington. Ending your season with Wyoming and Pullman is not necessarily ideal. But you know what's been ideal? We've been doing this now for close to 4 months. Love it. It's been a blast, my friend. And we've had Kenny Mayne on the show. We've had Lenny Wilkins. We've had the UW athletic director, Pat Chun, Washington State's athletic director, former president of Fox Sports Networks, Bob Thompson, Peter Tomazawa from the World Cup Organizing Committee. We talk a lot about the Sonics here, the Watts family. You talked with Donald Watts about Slick and the Sonics Legends Fund. A lot of good stuff here happening off the court, off the field, off the ice, and we've been doing it, and it's all downloadable. It's all free of charge on your favorite platform. And on the KOMO News YouTube page. On KOMO News YouTube, on the CW in Seattle, on KOMO after Monday Night Football. It's all over the place. And I think it's a testament that this is something that what we're talking about is something that needs to be talked about in Seattle sports. And you look at our show today, where we're talking about the Sonics, you're going to look back in a few months, we'll just say that to be safe, and fans who listen to the show are going to be like, oh yeah, that's what Chris was talking about, that's what Niko was talking about, and we're just trying to get ahead of it, and that's what Chris and I specialize in. So, tooting your horn and mine. That's still a line. Wait. Hey! That feels like a way to end, tooting our horn, before we send it to David Lee.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.